The first time I noticed her, it wasn't anything cinematic. No dramatic music, no glowing light through the window. It was just the laundromat on a Sunday evening, the hum of machines spinning in rhythm, the faint smell of detergent and warm cotton. She sat 2 rows over, reading something on her phone, one leg crossed over the other. A plain navy sweater, hair loosely tied back, the kind of look you could miss if you weren't paying attention. But I was paying attention. More than I should have been. I tried not to stare, tried to look busy folding socks and shirts. I had this habit of overfolding, refolding, like if I stretched the moment long enough, I'd figure out why my chest felt tight every time her eyes lifted from the screen. When they did, though, it was quick. A glance, then back down. Like I wasn't even there. Except one evening, she caught me. I'd dropped a shirt, and when I bent to grab it, she spoke up. "You always do laundry this late?" Her voice was warm, not teasing, just curious. I froze for a second, holding the shirt like it was evidence. "Yeah. I guess. No one's around." Her lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. "That's the point, isn't it? It should have ended there. Just 2 neighbors in the quiet." But it didn't. The next week, she remembered. "Same time again?" she asked, when I walked in, and my ears went hot because she noticed. She noticed me. I shrugged, fumbling with the quarters in my pocket. "Guess I'm predictable." "Nothing wrong with predictable." She tilted her head slightly, eyes soft. "The machines like it." She was older. That much was obvious. The kind of older that doesn't feel like years, but a presence. Steady. Confident. Her eyes carried things she didn't say, but I wanted to ask about anyway. I never did. Instead, I found myself waiting for Sundays. Waiting for that little nod, the quick glance, the way she somehow always sat near the dryers even when the whole place was empty. And me, always pretending to check my phone, drafting texts I never sent, staring too long at the typing dots before erasing everything. My screen stayed blank more often than not. One night, it was raining. The glass fogged near the entrance, droplets racing each other down the pane. She walked in shaking out her umbrella, her sweater damp at the shoulders. She gave me a look, almost amused. "Still here? Guess I'm consistent." She laughed softly, and it was the first time I really saw her smile. Full, unguarded, something that reached her eyes. I don't know what possessed me, but I said, "You look like you've got the world figured out." The smile faded, not completely, but into something smaller. Quieter. She folded her arms, leaned against the machine. "You're too young to understand," she said, almost under her breath. But the way she looked at me after, steady, unblinking, wasn't dismissive. It was something else. Like a door half opened. The machines beeped, signaling the end of a cycle. I gathered my clothes too quickly, heart pounding in my chest like I'd broken a rule I didn't know existed. When I finally stepped outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. Forgot this. Attached was a photo of my gray hoodie, folded neatly on the counter inside the laundromat. And below it, 3 words I wasn't ready for. The hoodie was folded exactly the way I never fold mine, sharp corners, sleeves tucked in. When I walked back into the laundromat, she was still there, sitting on the counter like she belonged to the place. "Thought you'd leave it behind," she said, sliding the hoodie toward me. "Wouldn't be the first time," I muttered, trying to hide how fast my pulse was moving. She tilted her head. "Lose things often." I shrugged. "Only the important stuff." Her gaze lingered a beat too long, like she wanted to say something else but didn't. Instead, she hopped down, brushed her hands together, and asked, "Tea?" "There's a place down the block." "Still open?" I don't know why I said yes. Maybe because it felt like the moment would vanish if I didn't. The shop was nearly empty, one barista wiping down counters, a couple in the corner whispering. She ordered chamomile without looking at the menu. I asked for the same, though I never drink tea. We sat by the window, rain streaking the glass. The silence was heavy, but not in a bad way. She cupped her hands around the mug like it was the only warm thing left in the world. "My son used to hate this stuff," she said suddenly. Her voice was soft, almost like she was speaking to herself. "Would roll his eyes every time I made it. He's older than you now." I looked down into my cup, steam rising, the surface trembling slightly as my hands shifted. She didn't have to explain further. That was the risk, right there on the table. I was the age of her son. Maybe younger. Something twisted in my chest, a knot of curiosity and guilt tangled together. I wanted to ask about him, about her, but instead all I managed was, "Guess I'm still figuring out what I like." Her lips curved, that small almost smile again. "You've got time." We talked about nothing after that, weather, books neither of us had finished, the laundromat's broken change machine. But underneath every word, something unspoken thrummed, a current I couldn't ignore. When the tea cooled, we didn't rush to leave. We just sat there, the street outside gleaming with wet pavement, cars passing like distant thoughts. I noticed the way her fingers traced the rim of the cup. Slow, absent. I noticed how she didn't check her phone once. And I noticed the way my own hand stayed still, folded on the table, as if moving would break whatever fragile thing we'd stumbled into. Finally, she leaned back, eyes on me, steady but unreadable. "You're quiet. Maybe I don't want to say the wrong thing." Her laugh was barely there, more breath than sound. "Then don't say anything." The space between us stretched, soft and fragile. She reached over, brushing a crumb from the edge of my sleeve, just a crumb, nothing more. But her fingers lingered for a second too long. It wasn't a touch anyone else would notice. But I felt it everywhere. The laundromat was louder that night, machines spinning, someone's phone buzzing in the corner, a radio crackling with static. She was already there when I walked in, folding towels with the kind of care you'd give to glass. I almost said something light. A joke. Instead, I just stood there too long. "You're late," she said, but the words didn't carry weight. More like she'd been waiting. I dropped my bag on the chair beside her. Tried to act like this was nothing. Just coincidence. But my hands betrayed me, fumbling with coins, slipping one to the floor. She bent at the same time I did. Our hands almost touched on cold tile. Close enough to feel the warmth, not close enough to call it anything. I straightened fast. "Sorry." Her eyes caught mine, steady, unreadable. And then, just a small breath. "Don't be." We stayed like that, longer than necessary, until the door chimed. A man walked in, younger than her, older than me, nodding as he passed. She pulled back. Shifted her focus to folding again, sharp corners, neat stacks. The man kept glancing over. Maybe curious. Maybe nothing. But suddenly I was aware of everything, the space between us, the way her wrist brushed mine as she set a shirt down, the silence that used to feel safe but now felt risky. She noticed too. She moved slower. Kept her eyes down. I wanted to ask if she was okay. I wanted to say something that would make the air less heavy. But the words stuck. Instead, I reached for a towel, started folding beside her. Mimicking her. Our elbows bumped once. Neither of us apologized. The man left before his cycle finished. Didn't even take his clothes. Just walked out, phone pressed to his ear. The silence after he left was louder than the machines. "You should, be careful," she said finally, almost a whisper. "Of what?" Her hands paused mid-fold. She didn't answer right away. Just smoothed the fabric flat, like buying herself time. Then, Of being seen where you don't belong. The word stung, though her tone wasn't harsh. Just tired. Like she was talking to herself as much as me. I opened my mouth, closed it again. My throat felt too tight. She sighed, leaned against the counter, arms crossed, gaze far away. And then, like she couldn't help it, her eyes flicked back to me. A quick pull, then retreat. The hum of the dryers filled the space. I stepped closer. Not touching. Just close enough for the air to change. Her breath caught. I heard it. Don't, she whispered, but her hand didn't move when mine hovered inches away. I didn't. Couldn't. But for a heartbeat, it felt like we already had. It was late when we left. The streets were mostly empty, lit only by tired lamps and the glow of corner stores closing down. She walked a step ahead, arms crossed tight, like she was holding herself together. I matched her pace. Neither of us said much. Just the sound of shoes on pavement, the distant hiss of traffic. At the crosswalk, she stopped. Not because of the light, there weren't any cars. Just stopped. You shouldn't, keep doing this, she said. Her voice was soft, not scolding, but it pressed against me all the same. Doing what? She didn't answer right away. Her hands rubbed at her elbows, restless. Following me around. Looking at me like, she cut herself off, jaw tightening. Like you do. The silence between us stretched, too heavy to pretend it wasn't there anymore. I laughed under my breath, though it sounded wrong. Maybe I can't help it. Her eyes snapped toward mine then. Sharp. Searching. But what she found must have unsettled her, because she looked away just as quickly, focusing on the empty road. We crossed together. My shoulder brushed hers once. She didn't move. On the other side, there was a bench under a flickering light. She sat without asking, as if her legs had given up. I stayed standing for a moment, not sure if I should, then lowered myself beside her. We didn't look at each other. Just sat in the half-dark, listening to the hum of the streetlight. You don't know what you're doing, she said finally, her voice low. You think you do. But you don't. I swallowed. My hands fidgeted with the seam of my jeans, tugging, letting go. Then explain it to me. Her breath hitched, a sound like she hadn't expected the words. Slowly, she turned toward me. Her face looked tired, older than I usually saw it, but her eyes burned. You're too young to understand. The words came out like a defense, but they trembled at the edges. I almost smiled. You've said that before. She didn't answer. Just stared at me, lips pressed together, 1,000 unsaid things shifting in her silence. And then, softer than before, almost broken, it isn't fair. Not to you. Not to me. The words cracked something open in my chest. For a second, the air felt thin, like there wasn't enough of it. I turned, faced her fully. Her hand rested on the bench between us, still, almost waiting. Mine twitched closer before I caught myself. Her eyes flicked down to the space between our hands, then back up. Neither of us moved. The streetlight buzzed louder, flickered once. I thought I saw her lean, just slightly, barely there. And then she stopped. The silence swallowed us whole. The next day felt wrong from the start. No message in the morning. No glance across the counter. Just absence, sharp and plain. I walked past the coffee shop twice before going in, pretending I was deciding. She wasn't there. The space she usually filled looked strange without her, like a photo missing its subject. I told myself it didn't matter. But I still sat, still waited. An hour later, she came in. Not late, different. Hair pulled back, sunglasses still on though it was cloudy outside. She didn't look around, just ordered, quiet, flat. I wanted to say something. Anything. But she didn't give me the chance. Not today. When she finally glanced my way, it wasn't the same. No pause, no soft recognition. Just a polite nod, like I was anyone. The kind of nod that builds walls. I stayed too long after she left, tracing circles on the rim of my cup. That night, my phone lit up. A name I didn't recognize at first. Scrolled through the chat history, empty. Just this, don't wait for me tomorrow. Nothing else. I typed, why? Deleted it. Typed again, did I do something wrong? Deleted that too. The cursor blinked like it was mocking me. I set the phone down, face down, as if that could erase it. The following days dragged. No sight of her. No sound. The shop felt different, muted. Even the barista asked if everything was all right, like she noticed me watching the door too often. On the third night, I finally saw her. Not where I expected, outside a small restaurant across town. She wasn't alone. A man. Older, but not old. Comfortable in his skin, the way people get after years of knowing who they are. He touched her arm when he spoke, easy, familiar. She laughed, quiet, soft, the kind of laugh she hadn't shared with me. I didn't go inside. Just stood across the street until they disappeared. Walking home, my chest felt hollow. Heavy. Both at once. When I finally sat down, I opened my phone again. Typed, I saw you tonight. Stared at it. Deleted it. Tried again, tell me the truth. Please. Deleted. The screen glowed, waiting. My thumb hovered, but nothing felt right. At the end, all that stayed was one half-written sentence, I thought maybe. The dots blinked at me, accusing. I never finished it. I just let the screen go dark. And the room stayed quiet, the way she left it. The rain had been steady all evening, not loud, just enough to hush the world. I almost didn't knock. My hand hovered at the door too long, every part of me wanting to turn back. But then it opened, and she was there. No makeup, hair loose, sweater falling soft over her shoulders. Not the woman I watched across cafe counters, just her. We didn't speak at first. She stepped aside, let me in. The kitchen smelled faintly of chamomile tea. The kind of smell that lingers, even when no one's drinking it. I sat. She didn't. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, not defensive, but like she was holding herself together. Finally, she asked, why are you here? The words caught in my throat. Everything I wanted to say, every half-written message, every silence between us, it pressed up all at once. Because, I started, then stopped. My hands twisted in my lap. Because I couldn't keep pretending it doesn't matter. Her eyes softened, but she shook her head. You're too young to understand. The same phrase she had used before, but this time, it wasn't sharp. It was tired. Like she wanted me to believe it, even if she didn't. I laughed, quietly, without meaning to. Maybe. But I understand enough to know I don't want this to disappear. The pause after that felt endless. The clock ticked somewhere in the other room. Rain tapped at the window like it was waiting too. She came closer, sat across from me. Close enough that I could see the faint lines at the corner of her eyes, the kind that only come from living fully. You don't know what you're asking, she whispered. This isn't easy. I have a past. I have, things you don't see. I don't care, I said, maybe too quickly. My voice trembled, but I didn't take it back. I don't care about what came before. I stopped again, because saying it out loud made my chest ache. I just don't want to lose you before I ever had the chance. Her hand moved, almost unconsciously, across the table. Stopped halfway, hesitated. Then kept going, until her fingers brushed mine. Not a dramatic touch. Not even full. Just enough. And in that silence, that single point of contact, everything unsaid poured out anyway. She looked at me then, really looked. Not through me, not past me. Into me. And she smiled. Not wide, not certain. Just soft. Okay, she breathed. That was all. And somehow, it was everything. It didn't change overnight. Real things never do. The next morning, I woke up with the same alarm, brewed the same black coffee, stared at the same half-written texts in my phone. Only this time, there was one that wasn't unsent. Her name at the top. A simple, "Tea tonight?" She answered with a time, not words. That was enough. Weeks passed like that. Small patterns. I'd see her at 8:47 a.m. some mornings, our quiet coincidence. Sometimes she smiled first, sometimes I did. No one else noticed, not really. But for us, the rhythm meant something. One evening, we sat on the old bench outside the bookstore. The same one where I had once almost said too much. This time, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt like a blanket. Comfortable. She sipped her tea, I cradled my coffee, and we let the city move around us. You know, she said finally, setting her cup down, I used to think this wasn't possible. I didn't ask what this meant. I didn't need to. I just nodded, watching how the streetlights softened the lines in her face. Lines I'd come to know like pages in a well-read book. Life wasn't suddenly perfect. She still had days when her past tugged at her like an anchor. I still stumbled over my own doubts, wondering if I could be enough, if people whispered when they saw us together. But none of that outweighed the way it felt when she leaned her head on my shoulder during quiet moments. There was no dramatic confession, no sweeping declaration. Love settled into us like water into stone, shaping us slowly, leaving its mark without noise. One night, while rinsing mugs at her sink, she touched my wrist and said, "Stay." Just that one word. No explanation. I did. And in that moment, it felt like everything we'd been circling around finally had a home. We still met at the cafe sometimes, still joked about my stubborn coffee order and her endless teas. Those little callbacks became anchors, our proof that the beginning hadn't been imagined. That it mattered. Now, when she looks at me, she doesn't say, "You're too young to understand." She doesn't have to. Because what we share isn't about understanding, it's about choosing. Choosing each other, in the quiet, every day. And as I sit beside her now, watching her fold a napkin between her fingers the way she always does when she's thinking, I realize the truth. This was never about the big moments. It was always about the pauses. The spaces where words failed, but something else, something better, remained. She glances at me, catches me staring, and raises one eyebrow with the smallest smile. I smile back. It's ours, that look. One final soft reflection, carved only for us.